Hello everybody. Hard to believe we're in week 4 already. So, this week is going to be actually a little bit harmonic dictation heavy. We're going to devote Monday and Wednesday both to harmonic dictation days. They won't be as many dictations. They're going to be more refining theoretical concepts that we already have. So we're going to talk about the 2 chord in more depth today, and then talk about the 7 chord more in depth on Wednesday. Now we've seen both of these already, but we're going to kind of complicate them by adding sevenths to them. Friday we're going to finish up chapter 12, and we're going to do some singing and dictation both in that video, and then we have our midterm next week. So we'll get to cover all of that. Let's go ahead and talk about the 2 chords. So we've had 2 chords before. We've seen 2 chords as in triads in their minor version in major keys and in their diminished version in minor keys. But we can add sevenths to them, and this actually happens quite often for 2, and it provides extra predominant tension. So these have the same figured bass as 5 chords when they have sevenths. So in terms of, for your kind of analytical purposes, nothing's going to change there. But they're going to be different because in major, 2/7 is re, fa, la, and do. So for instance, if we're in the key of C, we have re, and then now we're adding do, right? So this is a 2/7. We call this a minor 7th chord because it's got a minor triad with a minor 7th. Now, hearing that these 2s have 7ths is important because not only does it change what your figured bass is, but also this can complicate how we hear 4. So remember before, the big difference for 4 that we had was that 4 had do in it, right? Versus 2 had re in it, right? In this case, a 2/7 in a major key and in a minor key, as we'll see, has both re and do because of the 7th in there. Okay, so if you were primarily relying on hearing for do, we need to nuance that a bit. So you want to listen for re first. You want to listen for what kind of triad you have, and then you want to hear if you hear, and then you want to see if you hear 4 pitches or 3 pitches. In this case, we would have 4 pitches. Okay, nothing's doubled. And then if you hear re and do, that's going to narrow down that it's going to be a 2 chord. Okay, and from there it takes care of itself. So in a minor chord, or pardon me, in a minor key, 2 is particularly interesting because 2 is what we call a half diminished chord. 2 in minor is re, fa, la, and do, right? Now what's tricky about this is that we call this a diminished minor 7th chord because we have a diminished triad, right? Minor 3rd, diminished 5th, and then a minor 7th on top, right? So you've got a minor 7th from root to 7, and we've got a diminished triad at the bottom, hence half diminished. If you're asking yourself what a fully diminished is, or if we were to have a diminished chord with a diminished 7th at the top, we'll get to that on Wednesday, okay? So 2 chords in minor are going to be even more complicated because one of the most common sonorities that you'll see in a minor key is this kind of 2 half diminished, and you don't really see a half diminished anywhere else. So we're going to this week develop our nuance between a minor chord, a diminished minor chord, and a diminished chord. The difference between a minor 7, a half diminished, and a fully diminished. That's going to be kind of what this week's about. So today we're going to talk about 2s, and then we're going to kind of compound on that with 7s next time. So let's take a look at all of our 2 possibilities. This is in C major and in C minor, okay? So this is not a progression. This is not a chorale. I've just written out voicing possibilities for 2 chords in all of their inversions. Now, just like 5 chords, you will typically not, just like really any 7th chord, 4/3 is going to be far less common, okay? In addition, you won't see 4/2 as much. The 2 most common variations you're going to see are just the 2/7 and the 2/6/5. And if you're asking yourself why, that's because remember the most common forms of 2 we see are 2 in root position and 2 in first inversion where we have fa on the bass. Right? So, same thing applies here. I'm showing you all the possibilities, but we're going to primarily be seeing 2/7 and 2/6/5. Oh, and I beg your pardon. I forgot to include the half diminished symbol for the C minor portion. So the half diminished symbol, which we'll see next time too, the half diminished symbol is a circle with a line through it. It looks kind of like a do not enter sign, or like a Ghostbusters logo, so to speak. Okay, so do I have it on the previous slide? I do. So notice there on the previous slide you see the symbol next to 2. That's what you need to add in a minor key, because a 2/7 is not the same as a 2 half diminished 7, for instance. Okay, so I beg your pardon, I forgot here. So we'll make a note to do that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at a progression. Okay, look at it in context. So here's a minor, and then the next one we're going to do is we're going to do a dictation, and we've seen 2 in new contexts now. Okay, both in their half diminished and in their minor 7th version. Okay, so this progression, pretty straightforward. D minor. Okay, so progression goes something like this. Right? So notice how much tension was in that 2 half diminished. So we've got re on our bass, which narrows down that it's probably going to be a 2 of some kind, so that's useful for us. And we've got do in our soprano. Again, really narrows it down. It can really only be one thing when we have re and do in the same chord. Okay? Right? And then in the middle of that, you've got, right? Trying to reduce this down to hear your diminished triad is really important. Right? This kind of sound. That's what makes a 2 in minors. We've talked about before, but what makes this a half diminished is then adding on that extra, right? So in this case, what's nice about examples like this, and as we've seen before, because you're only responsible for dictating the soprano and the bass, in this case, your soprano and your bass gives you all the information you need to determine that it's a 2 half diminished 7, because you've got re and do. So you know that it's a 2 chord of some kind, and you know that it's a 7 because you've got do in there, right? If that was in the inner voice, if say it was voiced like this instead, let's see, if it were done like this, right? That's a bit harder, because now we've got that 7th in the middle. So in that case, you want to figure out, well, it sounds 2-ish on early listens. And then towards middle listens, you want to really listen to hear, are you hearing 4 distinct pitches? Do you hear do in here? Right? That's going to be really tricky, and that's the hardest part about half diminished chords. Half diminished chords as a sonority are really kind of slippery. For our dictation purposes. But again, remembering how your kind of algorithmic understanding of progression works too, you know, we have, right? We then go to our 5/7, right? So again, if you didn't quite catch that it was a 2, or if you see the re, but you think it might be something else, an inversion, you know, it might be, I don't know, it might be 7 of some kind. Just think about what your possibilities are for progression, and that's kind of a way to help narrow down some things for you. Okay? So, hopefully that clarifies things a bit. Again, we've had 2 already, so there's not a ton to say besides you can have 7ths now. So let's go ahead and just try out a dictation. Let's see how it goes. Okay? 5 chords. I'm going to give you 4 listens. So now we're in a major key. Okay? So take a second and think about what your 2 possibilities are going to be in a major key, right? So, here we go, D major. Okay, your first chord is written like this. Okay, here we go. 5 chords, 4 listens. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, take 30 seconds. Okay, so listen 2 of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, for your third listen, I'm going to roll every chord. Okay, third listen, I'm rolling the chords. Ready? Here we go. 1. Oh, here, sorry. I should give you what the chord is first. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, one final listen. I'm going to play them as normal right now, okay? One final listen. Try to do your best to figure out what's going on with the 2 chord that's in there, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, take another 15 seconds and wrap up your thoughts. Okay, so, little tricky, okay, because we're dealing with an inversion here, okay? So, right off the bat, we've got something that we've seen before, this kind of ascending bass line, right? Pardon me. Right? That gives you your 5-4-3. You also have the tritone in the right hand, and hopefully you're able to catch that as a 5 is the second chord. Then we end on a 1-6, right? Haven't really gone anywhere. We started here, we've ended up here. In any case. Now, the 2 chord, the biggest clues you have are actually the alto and the soprano, right? The left hand, right, could mistake it for a 4, especially if you look at only the bass and the soprano, because you've got G and D before a 5, looks like it might be a 4 chord, right? However, the note that gives it away as a 2 chord is that E in the alto, right? That's what makes it a 2 chord. See, hopefully we hear the difference between this and this, right? You got a minor triad here with the 7th. Also, if you weren't able to hear the alto part, is rising up, right? There's your 7th there, okay? Then we end on a half cadence on a 5 with a doubled bass and tenor, which means that we've got, there's no 7th, it's just a 5 chord, okay? So, that's actually it for today, because there's not a ton to do with 2 chords besides practicing just hearing what they sound like with their sevenths. Okay, so on a keyboard at home, or using the gamut, or on your own instrument, go ahead and try to hear the differences between a 2, a 2/7, and a 4. Right? Very important, but subtly different. Right? They're subtly different, and they all function in the same way. So 2, 2/7, and 4 are almost always in the same kind of spot of your progression. So picking out the differences is really tricky, okay? So really practice hearing sonority, hearing just the chord on its own. This is a major chord. Therefore, if I think it's a 2 or a 4, it must be a 2. That type of thing. And then also really try to practice hearing your outer voices and knowing what clues you can work with. In this example, the clues you were given in your outer voices didn't help you that much. You had to use your ears and your sonority to pick it up, okay? But if you didn't get there quite yet, we will. So don't worry, okay? So next time, as I mentioned, we're going to continue with harmonic dictation. It's going to be a bit of a harmonic dictation heavy week. We're going to do 7 chords with sevenths, okay? We've seen 7 chords before, briefly. We're going to add sevenths to them now and talk about new context for them. Your participation assignment will be assigned on Wednesday, due Friday. And I will give you some midterm details next Monday, just to kind of get this out of the way. The midterm is basically going to be the same format as before. The Monday video will be explaining the slight changes because of how going digital will work. And the video will also give you kind of an overview of what will be on the midterm. So I would go ahead and spend the weekend in preparation, just reviewing old videos. And if you need to email me about anything, touch base with me on things that you're not feeling comfortable about. But I'll give you kind of an overview of what's on the midterm, give you a roadmap for week 5, all on that Monday video. I'll also, by that Monday video, have the prepared singing that you would be used to at this point. I'll have that posted on Gotcha Space, and I'll go over that in the video too. I'll even show it in the video, okay? So, that's it for today. Hopefully, knock on wood, the videos this week are going to be a little bit shorter. It'll give you a break in preparation for the midterm because there's really not as much to do. We're just kind of picking up some harmonic loose ends because we've actually gotten almost everything that we need diatonically. Forging on to the end of the quarter, we're going to add sevenths to a couple more chords, talk about that pesky 3 chord, and do a couple more little complications and make inversions a little bit weirder. But at this point, we've basically got all of our diatonic possibilities. Right? We've got almost everything, and we're doing really well. So I'm not going to, punish you by giving you longer videos. So work on your 2s. We'll talk about 7 on Wednesday, and then we'll do some singing on Friday. So with that, take care, everybody. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I will see all of you next time.